Introduction. Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be with you. To Mark, to Shafi, and of course, to District Governor David, thank you for the invitation to join you today. So I've been asked to say a little bit about Rotary's role as a peace-building organization from an historical perspective. And I'm very pleased to have this opportunity. Rotary has a very long and rich history as a peace-building organization. And as I'll proceed to tell you, I think it's a very important dimension, particularly now when we have so much discord and conflict around the world. So let me start at the beginning. As we all know, Rotary started in 1905 in Chicago, grew fairly slowly at first. By 1910, there were only 16 clubs. The focus at that time was very much on service. But the overriding international objective or concern was the possibility that war might break out in Europe. The forces of nationalism in Germany in particular were increasingly strident. And in 1914, as you'll recall, Germany and England declared war on each other. It was a very brutal war, a lot of fatalities, a lot of injuries. In 1918, when the war finally came to an end, the focus of Rotary clubs became very much, what can we do to prevent the recurrence of such an awful event? In 1921, at the International Convention in Edinburgh, Rotarians adopted a resolution calling for all Rotarians to promote international understanding, goodwill, and peace. And those words, international understanding, goodwill, and peace, have since been enshrined in the official object of Rotary. This year, we celebrate the centenary of those words. And of course, they form the basis for all the work we do under the Rotary Foundation. In the 1920s and 30s, Rotary grew very rapidly. And I'd like to quote some statistics. In 1918, we had 400 clubs. 3 years later, we celebrated club number 1,000, the Rotary Club of York in the United Kingdom. 4 years later, we celebrated club number 2,000, Ketchikan in Alaska. In 1935, we had doubled to 4,000 clubs. Hanover, Pennsylvania was club number 4,000. And 3 years later, in 1939, we reached 5,000 clubs, Rockmart, Georgia. At that time, we had around 150,000 Rotarians. Rotary was an enormous organization and extremely influential. In those days, in order to be a Rotarian, in addition to having to be a male, you had to be a respected member of your vocation or your profession. A partner or a manager or the school principal or the sheriff. So when Rotarians met at a district conference, this was truly of local community movers and shakers. And when Rotary met internationally, it was a very significant international event. At that time, there was no such thing as a non-governmental organization, an NGO. Now we have thousands of NGOs, but Rotary was really the first significant non-governmental organization. In 1940, Rotarians met in Havana, Cuba for the International Convention. I might just add that at that time, there were 58 Rotary clubs in Cuba. Currently, sadly, there are none, although we hope that that will change before too long. At that convention, Rotarians adopted a resolution calling for respect for human rights. That was the first time those words, respect for human rights, had entered into the international vocabulary. And those words became the basis for the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights, signed in 1948. 2 years later, a number of senior Rotarians met in London. They were concerned about the impact of the war, Second World War, on education, on scientific research, on cultural monuments and traditions and values. They adopted a resolution which led a few years later to the establishment of UNESCO, United Nations educational, scientific, and cultural organization. 2 years later, when President Truman and Prime Minister Churchill decided that the time had come to establish an organization that would forever prohibit war, Rotary was one of a small number of organizations invited to send lawyers and other experts to work alongside officials from China, the former Soviet Union, the United States, and the United Kingdom to begin the process of drafting the United Nations Charter. And when the charter was signed in San Francisco in June of 1945, 49 out of the 800 delegates were Rotarians. I know that you've recently had a presentation on Rotary and the United Nations. Skip over other aspects of that relationship, but it's been a very important and continues to be a very important part of Rotary's ongoing international footprint. In the late 1980s, we partnered again with the United Nations when we developed the Global Polio Eradication Initiative. We partnered with UNICEF, WHO, CDC, and the Gates Foundation, the Global Alliance for Vaccine, and other international partners. In the late 1980s, an increasing number of Rotarians were reaching out to organs of the UN and international organizations. So the Rotary International Board established the Rotary Representative Network. This is the body that oversees Rotary's relationships with the United Nations and other international organizations. And I had the good fortune to serve as the Dean of the Rotary Representative Network, a very significant part of Rotary's international footprint. In the late 1990s, to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the passing of Paul Harris, Rotary decided to establish what has become known as the Rotary Peace Center program. Rotary partnered with 6 universities around the world, each of which was renowned for its peace and conflict curriculum. We've established peace centers in England, University of Bradford, in Australia, University of Queensland, in Japan, International Christian University in Tokyo, in Sweden, University of Uppsala, and of course, at Duke UNC in North Carolina. You're very familiar with that. Since then, we have 2 other peace centers for the professional development program. One is in Thailand, in Bangkok, and started at University of Makerere in Kampala, Uganda. I saw David's thumbs up when I mentioned Duke UNC. Of course, that's your home territory, so I guess you're very familiar with the program at that part of the world. The first cohort graduated in 2004. We've just selected the graduates, the incoming class, class number 19. We have over 1,500 graduates from that program, and these are the creme de la creme. I had the privilege of chairing the Rotary Peace Center program for 3 years. I had a lot to do with dozens of Rotary Peace Fellows, and as you well know, this is a very significant program. I've long felt that after we've eradicated polio, and we will soon eradicate polio, the Rotary Peace Center program may well be Rotary's most enduring legacy in the future. And we're at the stage now where many of the early graduates have assumed positions of responsibility at the United Nations, in the State Department, in the World Bank, and other organizations. So we really are beginning to get a dividend on our investment. In 2010, we developed the Future Vision program to reorientate the Rotary Foundation activities. And pursuant to that Future Vision, we established 6 areas of focus, one of which was peace and conflict resolution. And of course, now, as you know, we have the environment as an area of focus. And we have a number of projects that have been developed as part of the peace and conflict resolution area of focus. In 2012, we established the Rotary Action Groups for Peace, and that has become a very active RAG, developing chapters in other parts of the world. We've also partnered with various organizations that have a peace building focus, such as the US Peace Corps, the Institute for Economics and Peace, founded by Steve Killalea, often described as the Australian equivalent of Bill Gates, a very wealthy man who decided to devote his considerable resources to researching the economic costs of war and peace. Some 12 years ago, he established the Global Peace Index, which measures the peaceability of nations. And that tool is now widely used in universities and research institutions by graduate students looking to discuss the peacefulness of nations and what can be done through positive peace to improve the prospects of peace. We also partner with Mediators Beyond Borders, which has a very significant international presence, heavily involved in mediation. We have developed a program. Rotarians often ask, what can I as an individual do to promote peace? So now you can go online, you can do a course, courtesy of the Institute for Economics and Peace. And it's a 3-hour course, and if you pass, you get a certificate certifying you as a qualified Rotary Peace Builder. And that course, you can get it online. It's at the Institute for Economics and Peace website. Lots of practical ideas as to what individuals and clubs can do to promote peace in their communities. Every 3 years, we have a peace symposium. We bring Rotary Peace Fellows together just ahead of the International Convention. And when you see 60 or 70 or 80 of these Peace Fellows in a room, the energy, the excitement, the dynamics is really quite extraordinary. One of the criteria for this program is that the applicants must have completed 3 years in a peace building context after graduating from college. So this is not a program for young people who can't quite decide what to do in life, so put off the evil day by going back to university for 3 years. This is for people who've made a solid commitment to get involved in some aspect of peace building. So these are really, really dedicated, extraordinarily capable young people. So we have peace conferences. I attended a peace conference in Turkey via Zoom 2 weekends ago. We have peace conferences in the pipeline. We have Rotary Days at the UN, Rotary Days at the World Bank. We have peace workshops. We have a peace academy. You name it. Rotary has a variety of peace building activities. I've often said that when Rotary eradicates polio, as I said, we will. If we have a corporate project, and I suspect we will, we may have more than one, I'd like to think it would involve some aspect of peace, peace and education perhaps. We have many peace education programs around the Rotary world. And as David knows, I'm in the process of rolling out a youth and peace in action, engaging 100,000 young community peace builders throughout zones 33 and 34. A very exciting initiative. We have 17 districts signed on. We're raising quite a lot of money. And this is going to be a very, I think it's quite an ambitious program. It involves reaching out to interactors and high school students throughout our 2 zones. I'm very excited about this. It's getting a lot of good mileage, and you'll be hearing more about that. So in so many areas, peace is in our DNA. As I mentioned, we have peace conferences, peace symposia, peace academy, peace workshops, peace chairs. Rotary truly is a peace building organization. It's the largest community-based peace building organization in the world. The Rotary Peace Program is the most prestigious, the most extensive peace and education program in the world. I've long believed that Rotarians have not only the capability, but also the responsibility to do what we can to help bridge the partisan divide that we see both in North America and throughout the world. We need to reach out intentionally to the law enforcement community, to the faith community, to schools, to civic leaders generally. We have a lot to offer. We have a very well-regarded reputation, a brand. We are financially very sound. We've been going for a long time, and we have 1.2 million Rotarians all around the world. So we have a lot to contribute in terms of helping to promote peace and unity throughout the world. So with that, Mark, Shafi, I'm happy to answer questions. I know that we don't have a lot of time. Thank you again for the invitation. And as I say, I'm delighted to answer any questions.